All right, Baltimore City Council Budget and Appropriations Committee, Session 6, 4:30 p.m. We are going to have our first panel, which is going to be on innovation. Second panel, innovation. We have Department of Finance, MOIT, which is the Mayor's Office of Information Technology, the Comptroller's Office, specifically the Municipal Telephone Exchange.
Do we have a fourth one? Oh, no, that's good. Oh, that one twice, even though that's the same.
Okay, I'm joined by Vice Chair of the Committee, Councilman Leon Pinkett from the 7th District, Councilman Ryan Dorsey from the 3rd District, Councilwoman Shannon Sneed from the 13th District, Vice President of the City Council, Councilwoman Sharon Green Middleton from the 6th District. Staff to the committee, immediately to my right is Marguerite Curran. We have Paul Plymouth from the Council President's Office. I believe Kara Kuntz was in here, or will be back in here. And then representing Mayor Pugh, we have Karen Stokes and Karan Banks. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to ask for one official from each of the 3 departments to take a seat in, or multiple, as many as you want, but at minimum the person who will be speaking to take a seat up here. And then I'm going to ask for a brief 5 to 10 minute presentation from each agency on what you're doing in terms of innovation. With respect to finance, we're talking about the Innovation Fund. Mr. Klein, I assume that's going to be you. Comptroller's Office, we obviously want to talk about the Municipal Telephone Exchange. And then MOIT, I think the floor is open to you to go wherever you would like to go. Obviously, or hopefully, most of what you're doing is in the arena of innovation. We are also joined by Madam Comptroller Joan Pratt. Thank you for joining us today, ma'am. Madam Comptroller, who will be presenting on the Municipal Telephone Exchange on your behalf? If you could join us up here, sir. We've also been joined by Councilman Brandon Scott from the 2nd District. For those folks who are going to be testifying today, please speak into the microphone. The microphones should be live. And let's start off with the Comptroller Municipal Telephone Exchange. If you could say your name and then give a brief presentation, and then we'll go on to the next one, and then we'll ask questions at the end. And if you could introduce everyone from your team that's here today, please, before you begin.
Good evening. My name is Wary Gongar.
Need you to talk into the microphone, please, sir. Yep. There you go.
All right. Good evening. My name is Wary Gongar, and I'm the communication specialist at the Municipal Telephone Exchange, and representing the agency today on this presentation. And here for me from the Comptroller's Office, we have the Madam Comptroller and the Deputy Comptroller is also here today. And Mr. Stuart Beckham also from the agency as well.
Okay. So, do you have a presentation, or?
You have a presentation? You guys didn't get the slides or so?
Slides. Microphone? Yeah, I got it. We've been joined by Councilman Chris Burnett from the 8th District. Do you have that electronically? Do we have an email account connected to this laptop? Just make copies real fast. Like 10 or 12, please. All right, we're gonna skip over you. We'll come back. Let's go to Department of Finance Innovation Fund. I'm sure that you're ready.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the City Council. I'm Andrew Klein, City Budget Director. I have with me Kirsten Silvera from my office, who coordinates the Innovation Fund. I want to bring your attention to starting on page 109 of the Agency Detail book, Volume 1. I'm sorry, Volume 2.
Service, Mr. Klein, or page?
Page 109 of Volume 2. We've provided some fairly detailed information about the Innovation Fund. So the Innovation Fund was established in fiscal 2012, and since that time we have made 12 loans totaling $6.4 million. Over $2 million has already been repaid. The way the fund works is we ask our agencies to make proposals. These are loans, so the projects that we fund are ones that we believe will either result in a budgetary savings or revenue increase, or both, and in all cases improve city services in some way. So the Agency Detail book walks through each and every one of the loans we have made, starting back in 2012 with environmental health, providing handhelds to our food inspectors, and then e-plans, which put the development plans approval process online, process that used to require developers to make copies of very large format documents, and those would be taken from office to office sequentially to get the proper approvals. Now, developers are so happy with the online system that they were willing to pay an additional charge to use it, and they get the approvals much faster. I'm not going to walk through every one of the projects, but you can see them here, and we think that this is working very well. The nearly all of the projects that we funded are on track to be repaid, and then we can then recycle those dollars into new projects. And I think the biggest challenge is really spurring our agencies on to bring us new projects. And the latest projects, one that we're proud of, it's the smallest one we've done, Camp Small. This is a tree waste facility, and we've turned it into a revenue generator for the city by turning the tree waste into mulch that can be sold and also used on city projects, avoiding cost. And also we're taking actual logs, trees that are cut down, brought to the waste facility, and bundling them and selling them to lumber yards, others who need wood. So this is turning waste into wealth. And then our newest projects that are not underway yet but have been approved, one involves something called First Watch, which is going to improve our ambulance billing system, and then clinical billing in the health department. This is part of a larger project to gain Medicaid reimbursement through the clinical services that the health department provides, but also provide much more and better information to our clients. And so the innovation part of it is about improving that information flow to our clients, which we think in turn will improve their health and the health of their families. The Innovation Fund also funds our lean government program, and we have an extensive training program, and we also facilitate what we call lean business process improvement events, and we've listed those events here. All of this information is also online, but we've seen tremendous results from many of these events. One that I like to point out is the Northwest One-Stop Career Center at Mondawmin Mall. before they came to us, they had lines out the door. It was taking people 2-3 weeks, multiple visits to access any services. And many of these people are ex-offenders returning to the community. And through Lean, by mapping out the business process, finding the waste, redesigning the process, we spent a little bit of money on the bands you see at the airport to airport security, to go through the lines. Made some changes in the setup of the facility. Put an orientation program on a CD so that people could get the orientation at any time. And now people are able to get same-day access to the services. A 2-month data backlog was eliminated very quickly. The employee morale is up because they're not being overwhelmed by customers and data entry needs, et cetera. And so we've seen benefits to our customers as well as to our employees. And that's why our union leadership has been supportive of this from the get-go, because they felt like this is the first time our frontline employees are really being asked in a meaningful way, how can we make this service better? These Lean events, these aren't consultants coming in studying a process. It's the people who actually do the work, and we lock them in a room for 4 days with a professional facilitator, and they come out really feeling good about what they've accomplished. And now through our training program, we're trying to encourage more grassroots Lean process improvement, giving people the tools to think about, from their desk on out to their office, to their larger organization, what are some things that they can do to make the process more efficient. So I'll stop there and happy to answer any questions about our innovation and Lean program.
Excellent. Councilman, we're going to do all three of the presentations first and then get to questions, if that's all right. Thank you, sir. Next up, we have Municipal Telephone Exchange. And I would ask, yes, please. And I would ask that you talk about the status of VoIP. I know there's a number of questions from the council on that.
Okay.
And we've been joined by Council President Jack Young, and that's it. Oh. Already did. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for having me again. Sorry for the delay on our presentation.
Talking to the mic.
Sorry. Thanks again, and sorry for the delay on our presentation. The Department of Communication Services is under the control of the comptroller. Our service ID number is 133. The recommended budget for the MTE for the FY18 is $10,329,704. The MTE has a current staffing of 23. Also under the Department of Communication Services, we have the Municipal Post Office, which has the service ID as 136. The recommended FY18 MPO budget is $805,269. The current staffing of the MPO is 11. The Department of Communication Services is under the direction of the comptroller and comprises the two divisions, the Municipal Telephone Exchange, the MTE, and the Municipal Post Office, the MPO. Under the mission of the controller, the MTE provides communication services and equipment to city agencies. The MPO processes interdepartmental and United States Postal Office mail. In FY17, the MTE began the implementation of Voice over IP VoIP to replace the city's legacy centric telephone system. VoIP will be phased over 3 years, depending on the network infrastructure in the city. Several agencies have already converted from Centrex to VoIP, including the Department of Human Resources and the 311 call center. It is anticipated that 50% of users will be converted to VoIP in FY18. The primary benefits of VoIP to the city include the elimination of standalone telecom systems, the reduction of operational costs, enhanced features such as call ID, the message waiting, mobility services for first responders and field workers, a centralized management and telecom network, reduction of duplicative services. Funding for the new VoIP system will be through a conditional purchase agreement by the Department of Finance. The MTE also operates a call center that provides information and referral services. I'll take any questions if.
We're going to go to Moet next. Just for a point of clarification, VoIP is going to be run under MTE or Moet?
It's a joint venture between MTE and Moet. Moet does the infrastructure, the network side, and we do the telephone. It's the back of the wall, in front of the wall kind of thing, but it's a joint venture between.
Joint. Got it. Thank you. You can pull that mic down. Yep, there you go.
I think I'm better off taking it off. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Members of the panel and Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
Much better.
Better? Okay. MOIT is the, as
And your
everyone-
name, ma'am, and title?
Pardon?
Your name and title, please.
I'm Yvette Monroe. I am the acting CIO for the City of Baltimore.
Thank you.
MOIT is the enterprise IT organization. The agency is divided actually into 4 main functional areas. The main areas are administration, enterprise innovation and application. We have the 311 call center, and we have the infrastructure support services. The agency actually has a number of applications and web applications and mainframe applications that are in the process of getting modernized because of the antiquated systems that we have, and it is important that we migrate some of these systems to newer technology. We are in the process currently of looking at different kinds of technology to migrate these old systems, and although much of the budgeting is not in the FY18, it'll come in FY19 and 20. Some of the highlights of the agency, the overall budget that we have requested is about $29.2 million. This year, we have actually requested about $1 million in capital. Part of that is for backups, and the other part is for cybersecurity, each being about $500K. We have an ongoing software and hardware refresh system that is kind of an annual budget that is ongoing for $3 million. We are currently implementing a 311 CRM system, and we have an 800 megahertz budget of $5.4 million. And this year we've requested for a contract repository consolidation of $380K. The overall budget is $29.2 million, but once we address the 800 megahertz of $5 million, the 311 system for $5 million, and the refresh for $3 million, which is kind of a committed budget, which is about $13 million, we are left about another $13 million to do all the functional areas that I just addressed, which is the administration, the application and innovation, 311, and infrastructure. If you'd like to go through each of these areas, I could, or if you want to wait for and ask me questions later, I could address questions.
Yeah, I think we'll wait for questions, or we will, if we have specific questions, yeah, we can do that, so.
Okay,
Does that conclude your presentation?
yes.
Thank you very much. Council President Young?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We've been joined by Councilman Bill Henry from the 4th District.
Okay, the Innovation Fund, Volume 2, page 109. The projects that are funded by the Innovation Fund, they really don't use their entire budget allocated to their service. Could you describe potential projects that will use the fund in fiscal 18, as well as the breakdown of the cost for lean government?
So we have a rolling proposal process, and it used to be annual. Now we tell agencies, you know, if you have a project, you can bring it to us at any time. So I don't have specific projects lined up yet for fiscal 18, but we want to make sure we have funding available, and we'd like to be able to do large projects that will have major impact. So that's where we are. We can show you, as we did here, what the track record is, but I can't anticipate, the projects that will be coming to me.
Okay, so you all don't decide what projects are going to be funded through the Innovation Fund?
We're part of a
But you
committee.
have an idea of what agency is going to come with any particular project?
Not always. I mean, the proposals come from the agencies. Finance is part of a committee that reviews the proposals. We go through. This sometimes takes several months because we want to make sure that it's a good investment. So we review, we ask questions, we interview, and then we make a decision.
Okay, so if one agency doesn't use all of their funds, they just roll over into that account for that particular agency, or do another agency get that funding?
So if a project doesn't use all the funds that were loaned, those go back into the fund. Now, savings generated from projects are shared with the agency.
Okay. All right, the next one is for the Municipal Telephone Exchange. Can you provide an update on the implementation of the voice over IP telephone system?
Well, the voice over IP telephone system, currently we have implemented a number of agencies within the city. Namely, we have implemented the MTE, MOET, the Bureau of Purchases, Fire Department over at 401 East Fayette, Risk Management, Finance, a pilot in the Comptroller's office downstairs, the Liquor Board, Board of Civil Rights, Law, MOHS, and Health, and 311.
So when are you going to implement the council?
The council, planning for the council is already underway right now as we're speaking.
Okay, because I would think that we would have been one of the first agencies to have, been implemented.
One of the first agency, but what we had to also
You
take.
got to talk in the mic so I can hear you.
I'm sorry, sir. What we also had to take into effect, we had to do a site assessment of this building. This building the wiring in this building is old, so we had to make sure that.
I understand that the wine is old, but under the previous administration, we had it in our office.
Yeah.
I had one, the mayor had one, and we should have been one of the first agencies to test out this system for the volume of calls that we get and the complaints we get. So I'm hoping that the council is high up on that list to get voice over IP.
The council is high up on our list, so I can assure
Well,
you that
we
we
want
are
to
working on that.
sooner rather than later. Thank you. The MOET, there has been a lot of problems with 911. Could you explain to us what's being done to correct that? Because we hear it was Verizon, then we hear it was MOET, and we just need an answer of who's responsible, because 911 can never be down. And it was down a couple times.
So my understanding is 911 is being split from 311. Yeah.
So who's responsible for 911?
Good evening, you all. Use this one. Okay, good evening. I'm Lisa
Because
Allen.
everybody's saying it's this one and it's that one.
I
Who's
know it's very
responsible?
frustrating, sir. I'm Lisa Allen. I'm the call center director for 311. I'll go back a little bit and make a long story short. About 5 years ago, an idea had come around that we would unify 911 and 311. Over the time of trying to implement that and process that, we had a few objections from police and fire. So what we had done the past 2 years is, your answer, sir, though, is the Baltimore City Fire Department is in charge of 911. The police department is in charge of police dispatch, and the fire department is in charge also of the fire dispatch. MOIT, the 311 call center, is operational, not public safety, and it falls under MOIT. So I'm very happy to explain that, because it is a lot of confusion. Now, you may hear 311. When 911 went down, I'm happy to say that we were able to take their calls and get that overflow and get out in the public to call 311 instead of 911. And I also told people that were calling 311, since
Can
it
you talk in the
wasn't-
mic?
Yeah, since it wasn't an emergency, to don't call 311 right now. 911 people that are trying to get in touch with 911, please call 311. But it is very confusing. But we've always been operational, and the 911 operators and the dispatchers that belong to fire and police have always been under public safety. So it got a little, like I said, confusing a few years ago when people started saying, can we consolidate? That just isn't the best plan for Baltimore. This plan has worked, since 2002 when 311 was implemented.
So we need to wait for the fire department to come in to find out what happened with those dropped 911 calls.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Right.
Yes, ma'am. You gotta come to the mic.
My name's Gail Guilford. I just wanted to tell the council.
Gail, Mike.
I wanted to tell you for information purposes, Verizon came to the city of Baltimore in 2008 to inform us that they were getting out of the 911 business completely. We will be implementing a new 911 telephone system, primarily because Verizon is no longer going to do it. Secondly, because of the enhancements to technology. So everybody needs to understand that there is going to be a change in 911 because across the country, the telephone companies have gotten out of that business.
Okay. Mr. Chair of Public Safety, did you hear that? So I'm hoping that you will call a hearing on 911 so that we can figure out what's going on, because our constituents be calling us when it's not working.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. I actually was briefed about the coming change to 911. I was under the impression that you were as well, but I will make sure that we all are briefed on it.
Right. Yes, and I'm happy to explain that, because again, it does get confusing. But fire and police do public safety, which includes 911, and MOIT is operational, and we're 311.
Got it. Thank you.
In fact, Mr. President, I'll schedule a field trip for all of us to go over to 911.
So you'll see me too. We're all the way on the other side of the room, but we're in there
Go,
too.
Kim.
You have any other?
Just to piggyback off the president's question, Mr. Klein, risk management's located in City Hall, right?
Risk management is located in MICU, I
Okay.
believe.
Finance is here, though. I know that.
Well, finance, the director's office and my office are here. That's the only part of finance that's in City Hall.
So have we done any of City Hall yet on VoIP?
Not yet, but
When?
the only place in City Hall we've done a pilot. And City Hall is the next, the council and the mayor's office are the next on our list right now.
When is the time frame for that?
The time frame of that, we're looking in the next couple of months. That's what we already have we're doing the requirements gathering and programming right now for the council and the mayor's office right now, as we speak.
So can we provide a time frame for committed delivery for that?
A time frame for committed delivery is something I will have to go back to the project table, because I can give you a time right now, but the problem is, it's also dependent on all the variables as well.
Okay. Can you provide us something in writing to the effect of when the fourth and fifth floor of City Hall will get VoIP?
Will do.
Okay, that's number 28, Gron. Can we go back to the Innovation Fund for a second? Mr. Klein, how much is in the Innovation Fund right now?
Current balance is about $3.5 million.
Okay, and just looking at the budget book, fiscal 2017, we did about 1.1 million in loans. Fiscal 15, we did about exactly 500,000 in loans. Fiscal 14, we did 1.7 million in loans. So, as much as I'm a fan of this fund, as I think many of my colleagues are, I'm left questioning why we're budgeting $1.1 million, kind of building off what the president said before, to this fund if we know we're not going to be expending that.
Well, I hope we will. I mean, like I said earlier, the challenge is getting proposals from our agencies, and that's something we can all be encouraging. I mean, the health department came to us with a almost $4 million proposal. We split it up between the health education piece and the billing piece, which we decided didn't fit as an innovation fund project, but we would finance in a different way. So, I mean, it's easy to imagine projects in the multiple millions. You know, one of our largest loan so far has been the broadband project, and that is just now starting to generate some revenue as we have nonprofit organizations, other organizations willing to pay to tap into the broadband network.
Back to Moet, you talked about the 311 new CRM system. I know that's something that I talked with your predecessor about 2.5 years ago. I'm just wondering what the status of that is.
I think the implementation timeline is towards the end of this year. The system should be live probably in January of December of this year.
Did you, when you, who did your requirements development? Was that done in-house or contracted out?
In-house.
Did you reach out to anyone on the council during requirements development?
Yes, we did.
Which council members did you reach out to?
You know?
Mike?
Sorry. I have to look at my notes, but we met with all stakeholders that use the CRM system, which is really everybody in the city. We ended up with 800 functional requirements that people wanted to wish list or wanted it to do or it needed to do to make sure that the technology, at least it was the same, but of course it's better now. So we did do that, and that's what took us so long to put it on the street, to make sure that we had input from everyone.
So when did you do requirements development with the council?
I can't remember offhand. It's been over a year.
Over a year?
Over a year, yes.
Councilman Scott, Councilman Henry, Councilwoman Middleton, Council President Young, do you recall doing any requirements development with Moet?
No, I'm getting Lester now and see if anybody spoke to him.
Councilwoman Middleton?
I'm unaware.
Henry?
I don't recollect.
Negative, Ghost Rider.
That's my new name, Councilman Henry.
Mr. Chairman, I can neither confirm nor deny the opportunity.
Okay. So request number 29 is going to be that requirements document, which I assume is finalized because it sounds like you're ready to roll out implementation in 7 months. Off the top of your head, does that, do the requirements include back and forth communication between constituents that are filing 311 requests? For example, what happens now is a citizen will file a 311 complaint for, let's say, a pothole. They will think it's a pothole, so they will file that with DOT. DOT auto-generates and please correct me if I'm wrong, because you should know more about this than I do, because it sounds like you live, sleep, eat, and breathe this. DOT will generate a SRN. That SRN will go through the system. There's a workflow associated with that SRN. DOT will go out on site, and let's say in the example of this pothole, DOT will determine that it is not in fact a pothole. In fact, it is a water main break underneath the ground, which is damaging the integrity of the road surface. DOT will close that ticket without communicating with the citizen. DPW, that will go to DPW, who auto-generates a new SRN, not associated with the previous SRN. There's no linkage whatsoever. The citizen will then go online and look up their SRN. It will be closed. They will become frustrated. They will inevitably call or email or carrier pigeon one of the people at this table. We will then find out after the fact that DPW has created a new ticket. There is no way for that citizen to look up that new ticket number, and there's no back and forth communication, whereas you would say today is the 30th. On the 31st, you would get an email or a text message alert or an automated phone call that says DOT went out and inspected. We found that it is not a pothole. We're referring this to DPW. You can still use this SRN, or we've created a new SRN for you, et cetera. That is theoretically how the system should work if we were to provide top-notch customer service, which we currently are not. So my question is that taken into account in the new requirements?
Yes, and absolutely. And let me just make a quick high level of how customer service versus service delivery works. 311 is the customer service piece, which also we have to partner with the agencies because, of course, if something's not done exactly what or done, the process is not done correctly, what you just explained is exactly what happens. The new CRM tool with this new functionality, we've had the same tool for 15 years, but we are able to text and chat and link service requests to each other that should be happening now. It's a little more convoluted because the technology isn't like the new technology will do, but there is a process where DOT should have linked that service request to a transportation request, and that customer should still be able to look up that same service request number. But what this CRM tool will do is it gives you easier and quicker ways to link and follow the process. Right now, if you don't follow the process, then you get bad service delivery, in turn customer service. But the new functionality and new technology makes it easier to follow the process and to make sure that everybody can stick, for example, with that same service request number, regardless of who's working on it. It also allows the agencies to communicate to the customers and say, we didn't forget about you, or we transferred it to DPW, and it makes it easier. So one of the things that I'm communicating with this new tool is the processes are easier, and they should be followed all the time. So some of these processes were available in our current tool, but I'm not overseeing the agency and going out and picking up the trash and doing that to make sure that they're following these processes. So they are in place, but that makes everybody's call volume, including you all's, go up because those things aren't followed. But this will make it easier. It will allow the agencies to communicate every step of the way with the customer, and it will allow the customer to use the same service request number that they put in. So,
Okay, and we're going with a different, have we selected a vendor?
yes, it's Salesforce. They currently are also working in the District of Columbia, Philadelphia, and I believe New York City is getting ready also to implement Salesforce, and so is Chicago. The unique thing about Baltimore is everybody's now kind of waiting for us again because our processes should work just like you described, and we know how to put those things in place to make the processes work like that as long as everybody utilizes the tool correctly.
And what's the upfront cost of that procurement?
Right now, our cost was $1.7 million for implementation and 5 years. It is much cheaper. We're going to the cloud. So we are saving after this period between what we're paying for hosting now and what we will be paying to go to the cloud, a good $500,000 or $600,000 a year.
So right now it's 1.7 over the first 5 years, or that's just upfront?
That's implementation and the first 2 years of hosting.
And then after the first 2 years of hosting,
We
we're
will-
looking at $500,000 to $600,000 per year.
We're looking at about $350,000 versus $1 million. We were paying $1 million.
Okay, so year 1 and 2, along with implementation and development and all of that, is 1.7 million. Then starting in year 3, we're looking at approximately 350,000.
Yes, sir.
Mr. President, I'd like to bring Moet in as we get closer to the rollout of that to come in front of the Judiciary Committee and present on that system. I know we've got follow-up on this one from Mr. President and then Councilman Henry. Mr. President, you have follow-up?
No, I was just letting you know that my office said no one talked to any of them.
Okay. Before I go to Councilman Henry, so just to summarize the request, for Moet, number 29 is a requirements document to the committee for the 311 CSM system. And then the other request is a list of council members that you did outreach to, either those council members or staff, along with dates. Mr. President?
Yeah, this is for finance. Mr. Klein, in order to attain the lean government certification, employees need to complete all 3 levels of training. The advanced level training is quite rigorous and requires a significant investment of time, often requiring employees to be out of the office for multiple days at a time. Have you looked at possible improvements to streamline the advanced training to reduce the amount of time needed to complete the training?
Yeah,
It should be on.
yeah, I'll have Kirsten answer that question.
Council President, so we have actually taken a hard look at our lean government training program on all levels. We started with the intermediate level because we feel like that's the most attainable for most city employees. That's a 2-day training, and they do a small project in their agency, which gives an immediate ROI to their manager. So we've worked on that training to make it more government focused because lean started in manufacturing, and so by nature, some of the training is harder for people who work in an office to think about how they'd apply it. But I met with a big chunk of our 22 trained advanced students about a month ago and presented them with an option for ways that we could tweak the training to be more attainable. So we would still have the 4 days of training, just because that's pretty aggressive in the first place, and they would do a small project within their agency. But instead of having to do, I think it's something crazy like 800 hours of project management, which I think is probably more than getting your PMP, and going to take this exam, we would go a mentorship route. So they would then mentor people within their own agency on doing process improvements. So it's kind of a quicker direct benefit without necessarily going to this engineering course and taking a test. So it is something that we're working on rolling out.
Okay, because when we did Six Sigma at Hopkins, it didn't take us that long to get certified or go through the training. It was
Right.
almost like a day and a half of training, and I think that was more rigorous than this training that you're talking about.
Yeah,
and
so
we
it
did the same thing
depends.
at Johns Hopkins.
So
I
it
was a part of that.
It depends. Six Sigma has different belt levels. The
Right.
day and a half training is
I'm a
green.
black belt.
Yeah, so the black belt is what, on the engineering side of it, does take a lot longer. The certification exam is incredibly rigorous. The green belt, which is probably most applicable to our day-long training, where they go back to their agency and they do a 5S project, so something a little more attainable. That is kind of comparable to a green belt, whereas what we're trying to get employees through is the engineering black belt exam. But like I said, we're scaling that back and looking at how it can be directly impacting Baltimore and getting a lot more bang for our buck instead of waiting this long time frame.
Okay. My next question is for Moet. We know that we're still stuck in the, I think, 19th century as it relates to our system. What are the plans to bring us up into the 21st century? And is there funding to do that? Because we're behind, way behind.
You're absolutely right. We are very much behind the curve. The technology is very antiquated. We are actually in the process of significant planning with finance and City Hall management to define the strategy moving forward to migrate us from a COBOL-based system, which is our legacy system, to newer cloud-based technology. We also have a lot of applications that are significantly exposed in terms of security, and we are looking at how to migrate those quickly. They've been given high priority, and all that has been presented to City Hall and to the Finance Department. The Finance Department is definitely looking very hard for funding. The ticket price on some of these items are fairly high because it's been a very long time since we've done any maintenance or improvements to the systems. So it also includes some of our infrastructure area. Our infrastructure needs a lot of help. That's the backbone of the city. And there's a lot of things like disaster recovery and COOP plans that we need to look at and how we host things. So we have a lot of work in IT for the city, and I'm certainly pushing the agenda forward as hard as I can. Hopefully I can get the funding to help support that.
Okay, well, that's important that funding is allocated to Moet, because we're so far behind.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of folk, when they talk about our system, they laugh at us, tell us how antiquated our system is. I mean, when we're discussing different things as it relates to anything dealing with MOAT, they say, well, y'all still in the 19th century. So we need to fund them appropriately. We tend to find money for other initiatives. We need to find money for MOAT. I've said this for the last, 5 or 6 budgets. We need to get the money for MOAT to bring us up into the 21st century.
Councilman Henry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Council President, in all candor, we're not really stuck in the 19th century as much as the late 20th, and way too early in the 21st. Mr. Chair, I'm going to yield my time now because I'm realizing I should hold the question until we can talk to both City Stat and the call center in the next panel.
Councilman Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My first question is about the Innovation Fund. Mr. Klein, I think that it may not have been you, I think it was Mr. Sineme and I had this discussion during our hearing about the consent decree for the police department, where I simply asked that they are required to make all these technology improvements. It seems to me that this would be a perfect place to use the Innovation Fund. Have we thought about that? Can you tell us, have we thought about that? Have there been proposals? Instead of us increasing their budget, maybe they can use the Innovation Fund to do some of the technology improvements.
So we haven't, because with the Innovation Fund, the project needs to generate a true budgetary savings or increased revenue. I haven't seen a proposal that has a direct, that directly ties that. We are using some fund balance for consent decree projects to take some pressure, because that's a one-time cost, take some pressure off the general fund, off of our current revenue. Kirsten reminded me of a couple of projects. So I mentioned the balance in the fund that doesn't account for over $1 million for our most recent approved projects, which are the First Watch, EMS, and the Clinical Billing and Health. Mm-hmm. Also, we do have 3 proposals that are in the works, have not been reviewed yet, but one is a system. This is actually a finance project to improve our ability to appeal assessments of commercial buildings. We think for about a $1 million investment that could yield many millions of dollars in future revenue. Also, there's a second phase of that Camp Small project that involves a compost facility on the site. And planning, the sustainability folks at planning, they're working on a neighborhood food waste compost proposal. And I don't know the Camp Small and the neighborhood food waste, I don't have dollar figures yet. So, but just to say that there are some new projects coming, and there will be activity to use the funding that's there.
Kristen, what to say?
I just want to hop in on the police department. So I have met with them a couple of times about different projects, specifically in their RMS system. A lot of their records are literally in boxes on paper, and millions. And so I've been working with, her name is escaping me at the moment, Chief Margaret Barolero, to figure out, is there a way that we can really quantify the savings that would come from, scanning millions of documents into this online system? And I think the answer is yes. The ball is currently in their court. I went and I spent a couple of hours with them walking through everything, and I'm just waiting to hear back from them on how they think they want to materialize the savings, because the worst thing that we could do is build in the savings and then have them not willing to kind of own up to them and then set a bad precedent. So we're definitely open to it, and I'm happy to coach them through that process. So if you have ideas, please let me know, and I'll follow up on them.
Well, one off the top of my head, we know that they write their reports by hand, right? But we're going to spend all this money
Field-based reporting.
Field-based reporting for them to not do it. Just simply put, that'll save them overtime alone, probably millions of dollars, because we know it takes a lot longer to type a report in than it does to actually just enter it in a database. And then we have to think about on the backside of what happens in the record management, but also the supervisors reviewing them, and supervisors review reports at the end of the day because they have to wait until all the officers bring them the reports because they don't always get to bring them all at the same time. These are the kind of things that I think that we should be looking at the Innovation Fund for, especially since we're being asked, and before, this is actually why we haven't voted out that resolution yet, we're being asked to give them more money for the consent decree for these things, and we know that there are inefficiencies that they have that currently can be recouped before we give them more money to expand their budget. And while we're on that, actually I have a perfect example of something we can use the Innovation Fund for, Mr. Klein. This is something that we have to do by law anyway. The municipal ID is a perfect way because that we know it's going to save us money. We're going to not print out 5 different ID cards for kids. We're going to print out one, and I think that's one that we could definitely use.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And Jessica has been great to work with, by the way.
Great.
My second question is actually for Moet. It's about It's about cybersecurity. I personally don't believe that the city spends enough money on cybersecurity, and that we're putting not just all the city employees and all the folks that work in city government at a great risk, but also everyone that does business with the city at a great risk. How much exactly are you guys allocated for cybersecurity, and how much more do we need to protect the city as much as we possibly can?
So this year, what we got for cybersecurity was about $684,643. Our cybersecurity footprint for a city of this size is very, very small. It certainly does expose us, and we tend to be in more of a react mode when something happens rather than proactively managing. So we are probably looking at much more funding that is required in the coming years. I don't think we have defined everything we need, but I can tell you it's probably going to be running in the millions in the coming years, just so we are protected.
Mr.
We just
Chair,
need a lot of tools.
if we could respectfully request that we get a estimate about where we should be as far as cybersecurity in comparison to other cities, if you guys could send that to us, because I think in the risk level, like how much are we at risk? What level are we at? Code red? Are we at orange? Are we at purple? Are we at green or yellow? Based on the amount of funding that's allocated to you guys, and you can only do what's allocated with what was allocated to you.
So if I can just contribute to that, we are getting at least about 60,000 hits in a week of people trying to get into the city. So the risk is very, very high. It's not acceptable.
Do we have so Councilman Scott's request, number 31, do we have some type of cybersecurity risk assessment that?
Yes, we do.
A contractor, okay. And how often is that completed?
I think that's once a month. No?
Hi, my name is Gail Guilford. I'm the Chief Information Security Officer. We have a partnership with the Department of Homeland Security at no cost to us, and we get a weekly review, and it is 60,000 attempts per day, not a week. We get a in-depth review from them on a weekly basis of what our vulnerabilities are, how to correct them. We also get from the Department of Homeland Security for free again a complete audit and full assessment. They bring in 10 engineers from the Department of Homeland Security to our site, and they actually hack in, they send out phishing emails, and then they give us a report of the top 2, well, it's really 10, but the top 2 that we meet to correct. The last one was a patch management. Thanks to finance, we did get money to get an automated patch management system. Since we have gotten that, and I don't know, I'm hoping you read, but I send out emails every week about cybersecurity and what you should and should not do, okay? If you read them, that was also number 2, was to really work any way I could with education. So as a result of us complying with the number 1, which was patch management, and the number 2, which was the education, they will come back this year and reassess us and give us the entire report over again.
So if you could provide, so number 31 would be the last weekly assessment from DHS, and then number 32 would be the last full vulnerability assessment audit report.
Sure.
Thank you. And my last question is about the telephone exchange. So when the idea was told to the council, and actually I was staff at the time, it was told to us that as it's implemented, we'll start to see big cost savings in versus MTA VoIP versus how MTA exists today. Have we seen that in the agencies that we instituted in already? And if so, can you provide us with like a dollar amount of the savings that we think that we're seeing in those agencies?
As far, excuse me, as far as the savings are concerned, what happens is once we turn up an agency, it takes Verizon another 2 or 3 billing cycles to get that off their, how you call it, the record before we can see that. So that information I cannot provide it to you right now, but we can make that. Those that have already been converted, we can find those information for you.
How long has the earliest agency been under VoIP?
The earliest agency been on since November the 18th last year.
Okay. So, Mr. Chair, we can follow up on that later.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilwoman Sneed? Oh, I'm sorry, Council President Young had a follow-up on that.
Thank you. As it relates to Mort and their infrastructure needs, I know that we have cable and communication that has all that capital money in there. Wouldn't that be a source of revenue to use to help, this is for you, Mr. Klein, to help Moet with their infrastructure needs? Because it's supposed to be capital money.
I don't believe so, but I can check. I
Yeah,
believe
you-
that money has to be used specifically for capital improvements related to public, the public television.
Not all of it.
the-
I thought it
City's
was
cable channel.
used for capital, because we had stuff done in this chambers, not everything that we asked for, but the new video system, the new cameras, stuff like that.
Yeah, that's related to televising the meetings.
Right.
Right.
And I think Moet could be tied into that because I'm quite sure that y'all do stuff for cable and communication as well. Am I correct?
Correct.
I can't hear you.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so let's look into whether, because there's a lot of capital money sitting over there that we probably can use to upgrade Moet to get us into, Councilman Henry said the 20th century, I still say 19th century, well, we can get them up into at least the 20th century. So I would appreciate if you get back to the Budget Committee on whether we can or cannot use those funds. And I know cable and communication, Mr. Chair, is coming in, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Next.
thank you.
Councilwoman Sneed.
Thank you. I just have a quick question in reference to kind of piggybacking off of what the council president said as far as technology. Even in this building, the question is for Moy, I'm sorry. Is there a way to make sure that our front desk and as well as our 5th floor reception area, if we can get them on a computer with, instead of printing out every time a visitor comes to visit us, like we literally have to fill out a form and take it to the 5th floor and take it downstairs every time, and I feel like it's a waste of paper, and every time I print I say it's costing me money. Is there a way, because that's not big technology, that's not a major idea, is that something that can happen fairly quickly?
Yeah, I can certainly look at the workflow that you have and determine what kind of technology will help kind of mitigate that paper flow. I can't answer the question right now because I need to kind of go back and look at it and see what kind of technology can be deployed. There's always going to be a cost to it, but certainly I'll look into it.
That's, even if it's Excel, I mean,
Yeah,
do
right,
you mean
right.
something? Because we're literally running back and forth, our staff is running back and forth with paper sheets. It's so sad.
Yeah, we can do something simple that'll get you guys up and running in an auto format. And
Thank
then
you.
we can just determine what to do later.
Thank you.
Just a reminder, we're nearing the end of this. We're going to try and wrap up in the next couple minutes. Councilman Henry, I know you got a follow-up on that. Oh, Councilman Pinkett.
So my first question is for the Municipal Telephone Exchange. On Service 133, number 3, contractual services. For budgeted FY 2017, it's like 7.2 million, but then recommended FY 2018, it jumps up to almost 8.2 million. Why does it, what's the reason for that $1 million increase? You see what I'm talking about?
Where-
So, I'm sorry, page 33 in the budget.
It's yours? It's yours?
I know.
Good afternoon, Harriet Taylor. I can try to address that for you.
Okay.
Contracted services are basically the services that we will procure on behalf of the agencies. So when you need new equipment in your office, that is that line item. Also, it is for services such as maintenance on telephones that we currently have. So those are mainly the costs that the agencies, we anticipate there'll be a slight increase based upon what the agencies have ordered. That's what that line item is for.
Okay, so that's going to cover all of the agencies, or?
Yes, for when agencies need equipment or various services, that's what that line item is for. So if you need a repair, we'll cover that. That is not your VoIP. VoIP is a separate cost item for us, and it's going to be funded through the city's master lease purchase program. But we do have ongoing costs that do change from year to year, and so that's a prediction. So hopefully, as VoIP goes into place, there'll be less requests that agencies will make, but that's a slight increase for that.
Gotcha. My next question is related to, Mr. Klein, and related to the Innovation Fund. During council, especially during our meetings, we use a lot of paper. What's the possibility of utilizing the Innovation Fund for tablets or, Wi-Fi necessary so that we could, go paperless as it relates to, as best possible during council, hearings and meetings?
Yeah, the trick is, can we tie it to specific reductions in the budget?
Oh, absolutely.
So if we can do that, meaning that future budgets would be lowered as a result of this upfront investment, then yeah, that's an innovation fund project.
Yeah, you should already have that data from Planning Commission, because Planning Department did this they now own tablets, and they've eliminated the need for reprinting multiple copies of things for Planning Commission, Sustainability Commission, and CHAP, because they just use those tablets for all those meetings.
Right.
Another question related to the Innovation Fund. Now, I know the premise is that the activity that's funded will yield a savings.
Yeah. Or additional revenue.
Or additional revenue. Say there was the city had an opportunity to make an investment that would be reimbursed, but yet would yield maybe a 4 times subsequent investment from some other source. Could the Innovation Fund be used for, that type of opportunity as well?
As long as the fund can be repaid.
So as long as the fund can be repaid, so in a situation where that investment was going to be reimbursed, would that be considered a repayment?
Yeah, possibly. You're probably referring to something specific.
Yeah, I am. But we can talk later.
We can talk offline.
Okay. And my last question was to Moet. I don't see it in the budget, and maybe it's just not a part of it. But what role does Moet play in the broadband expansion or broadband plan for the city?
We are definitely involved in broadband. There's a number of initiatives going on. There's discussions with the schools. We actually manage all the fiber initiatives in the city. So we have a significant role in broadband.
And is that reflected in the budget anywhere?
It's not built into the budget.
So what exactly is our role? Because if you're not,
if I could,
okay.
One of the Innovation Fund projects was the extension of the broadband network, and so that was a $2 million plus investment, and now we are starting to essentially market that to organizations who would then pay to connect into the broadband network, because we have more capacity than we as a city need. And Yvette mentioned that the schools, the E-rate, federal E-rate program actually pays to connect schools to broadband.
Right.
And so that activity is going to get started fairly soon.
And I mean, it's good to hear, and I'm curious to know where that broadband ring is, because oftentimes, whether it be from Rec and Parks or whether it be from BPD, at least I think some of my other colleagues could attest the same, always hear that we can't put cameras in certain places because there's no, broadband infrastructure.
Right.
So I'm just kind of wondering, where's this
Yeah.
ring? Because
Sure.
it's not in West Baltimore.
It's 32?
34.
34? Sorry, I'm behind. So we'll provide the map.
Ron's keeping track for you.
We'll provide the map.
That's it.
Colleagues, if there's no other questions, we're going to go into recess until 6 p.m. sharp, and we'll be back for third panel on accountability and transparency.
These numbers don't add up, Art. These numbers don't add up.
Yes, I got it.